Rec 4.
We're finally here.
Rec 4 Apocalypse. It's set in a worldwide apocalypse of a boat isolated from anybody else. What are you going to do? Zombies. The guy turns around and it's like, uh-oh.
In-camera effects are really good.
Oh my gosh. Okay. The action is awesome. The cinematography and editing. The return of our hero, our queen, Angela Vidal. She's back, baby. The actors killed it. There's a little bit of puppet / animatronic wormy boy. Just.
You ever seen that one episode of Mr. Meaty with the tapeworm?
It's exactly
like that, yeah.
Oh, no. It's a great return to form. Rec 4 is the sequel to Rec 2.
The proper threequel, if you will.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Narratives and Nonsense. We are friends talking about random and recent stories, newsworthy or otherwise. I am Jordan, and this here's...
I've been known by many names. Odd and well enough. Horath, the all-encompassing. Sassy Ramirez. Della Conager. And even Calvinor Albus Rasmundo. BF3PO. Kesse Guz. No. I've survived one of the most deadly forbidden jutsu ever released on the battlefield, the heaven and earth spear. I've slayed the dragon to save the princess. I've slayed the princess to save the dragon. I've been slain by the dragon princess. Now don't get it confused, don't get it twisted. It ain't Donner, and it's certainly not Dahmer. And it is with the most greatest of honor that I'm here with you today. It's Connor.
I know that those are D&D names.
No, there's alien names and Star Wars names in there.
TTRPGs. Yeah.
Quit it with this D&D centrism.
D&D is TTRPG.
No, it's not.
Is.
No.
So, what are we? Why are we hype? What's the big deal? What's the big idea? Productions. That's a VeggieTale reference for...
I don't know, I just snorted a lot of Tootsie Rolls, so...
So we hit 100 subscribers this last week. Yay! So thank you for paying attention and listening and engaging in some form or fashion. And we hope that we bring some entertainment and the like. And we're gonna keep on trucking. We're almost
really good to get there before the end of our first year.
Yeah, we literally did this as a. Hey, we need an excuse to hang out with each other. So we made a podcast, and that was our New Year's resolution for 2022. And we hit 100 within the year, and it's fantastic. Let's keep the ball rolling. Yay.
Anyways,
thank you all. Jordan? Oh boy, we're starting with mine. Oh gosh, it was pretty good. So first things first is I got to do a lot of catch up with some folks that I haven't seen in a while. So there's a friend of mine named Bethany. She's working in the film industry. She's actually out in California. You would know her as well from our middle school days. And it was cool talking to her and her husband. You'll be proud. I only ranted about Rise of Skywalker for 30 minutes. We got through 10 minutes and 4 seconds of the movie, and I said a hard line of, I'm not going to talk beyond this point because we need to stop talking about it because it can be an absolute 6-hour plus endeavor of me ranting, I imagine. So that was entertaining. And then, oh gosh, there were a bunch of other friends. So myself, Emily, David, Monica, and we almost ended up recruiting people because there's a little bit of ticket craziness. So to start this all off, this is going to sound like a real curveball. My grandma's favorite movie is Beauty and the Beast.
No.
Yeah. So with that, they have a local showing at one of the performance centers, small local town type thing. They had a show there. My great grandma and my mom, both of them went to go see Beauty and the Beast. They're like, yeah, this slaps. You need to go see it. So I talked to my grandma and I'm like, hi, favorite person on the planet. We need to go see Beauty and the Beast. Come with me. So this last Wednesday, we were going to go see it. Well, on the last podcast, we actually cut out a little bit of the middle, which we don't often do. We try to keep it as one long string. we cut out a little bit because I got contacted by my mom like partway through. Turns out my grandma got COVID, so she's fine.
Oh, see.
Like, yeah, thankfully she's fine. You know, she's under the weather, but she's doing better. She's not in danger, as far as we can tell, and she's making recovery. Blah blah blah. But we couldn't go see Beauty and the Beast, so now I have this spare ticket to Beauty and the Beast, and I'm like, oh boy, what am I gonna do with this? So I reach out to my friend Emily, who she ended up quitting her job and going and traveling for the last couple of months. She's back in town. She's looking for work. So I'm like, hey, you're unemployed. Do you want to, like, we were going to hang out on Wednesday anyway, just to like catch up, talk, all that jazz. Do you want to go see Beauty and the Beast with me as my replacement date for my grandmother? Her response, unexpected. She said, yeah, sure. Hey, on that note, we have a spare ticket to a group called Peach Pit, which was performing downtown and so, hey, do you want to come see Peach Pit? I'm like, oh yeah, sure. When is it? Oh, it's the day before Beauty and the Beast. So Tuesday I went to Peach Pit downtown and it was fun. It's a very vibey band group, what have you. It feels like the background soundtrack of like a teenage coming of age story type of movie. Then the next day we were going to go see Beauty and the Beast. We go to the center to actually watch it. It's the Arvada Center for the show. And when we get there, there's a big old line, you know, everybody's excited, getting ready. There's people with their grandparents, there's kids all over the place. Like, it's a pretty full event, which is very exciting. And somebody comes out like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes after standing there waiting. And they're like, hey, we're having technical difficulties and it's unsafe for the actors to perform. We're canceling and refunding tickets. And I went, well, so Emily and I ended up just going to the McDonald's across the street doing our talking catch up anyway. But I ended up telling my grandma later, I'm like, so yeah, they learned that they couldn't perform for you. So they decided, we're not going to perform for anyone today. So grandma and I still need to go see Beauty and the Beast. And we're going to talk about that when she's feeling a lot better. And then I got to go see Peach Pit, who I had never heard of up until talking about doing this weird ticket exchange thing. And I have to make it up to Emily at some point because she got me a ticket to a concert. And that's how that whole kerfuffle happened. I accidentally went to a concert. That was my last week. Other than that, it's been pretty chill. Some work stuff, figuring out ambitions and career goal, what have you, because it's my 1 year anniversary in my position. So that's this month. So I got to talk to my supervisor and be like, hey, yeah, I feel like I'm doing good. And he's like, I agree. I'm like, okay, good. Thank you. Anyway, how about you?
Same, just long, boring work week. Nothing really challenging or interesting, but
the climbing, the gaming.
Same old. And then, climbing's been good. Pushing the grade a little bit more. We're going to stuff. Got an overhang climb at the normal grade to climb at, which is nice because I've not done that before. So that was really good. Overhang is obviously when you're like that or this even.
Sure. So with a different tangent, anything new for like shows or movies? Like we watched Rec 4. That'll be the meat and taters of today's ordeal. I did watch the next episode of Willow. And I enjoyed it. I think it didn't quite strike the same hit the third episode of Andor and now I'm sold on the entire show. But I did like it quite a bit. And I think it's got that potential and it's still working its way. Like it succeeded. I do think there's a little bit of filler, but I do think ultimately I'm going to like that show.
Nice.
That was the thing. I didn't know if you did anything else.
For the most part, I just listen to like podcasts or watch YouTube stuff.
All right. Sweet. So outside of that, goodness, what else for like weekly news? Well, this next week, it's supposed to be really cold. I say really, it's saying between 30s and 50s. It's Colorado. It has a 20-degree range easily. There's some clouds, maybe some snow. Theoretically, on like Tuesday, we have the most clouds. So we'll see if that comes true. But this last week, As far as uplifting news and such goes, there's been a lot of very fun, very wholesome stories. I think one that is most directly connected to things we talk about is with Everything Everywhere All at Once. You know, we had a whole episode about it. I still really love that movie. I started to rewatch it. I was with my mom the other night to try to show her. I'm like, please watch. It was late, so we didn't finish it, but we will. We we talked about how it was really cool that Kei Kwan kind of came back into acting because of this movie. And since then, he's kind of elaborated more on how much of a difference he's made. Like, it was something where he initially didn't want to get into acting. He was there to support his brother in like the initial auditions for Indiana Jones. Yeah. And they caught on that he was kind of doing the little bit of a support role, like, go on, you know, coaching his brother. They ended up casting him instead. They used him for a couple of things, but unfortunately, at that time, there wasn't a lot of roles for Asian actors. Yeah. So he gave up on that. In his 20s, he went and studied to work more on the behind the scenes of film. And then after Crazy Rich Asians, he's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to give this one more go. And that was Everything Everywhere All at Once. Now he's getting celebrated and rewarded. And Jamie Lee Curtis is on record saying that it's not a comeback. It's a return of a proper artist kind of thing. And for Kei Kwan in particular, it's kind of inspiring that he had, you know, this like 20-ish plus year gap between him working towards what became his dreams and really like shifted his life direction, destination, what have you, to kind of seeing those dreams die out and then come back into fruition. So that was something that was very wholesome and inspirational. And he says, like, yeah, you know, it's fate, but I'm kind of like crying a lot now in a very positive way. And hopefully this inspires other people too. And I think it's just incredible. It's very cool. So kudos to him. I also think that movie it's still
something else.
Oh my gosh. I do think it's becoming one of my favorites, period. So that was on that news. Going to other like very inspirational but younger age type thing. Over in Arkansas, there's a small
Thank you.
Arkansas. There is the youngest African American mayor. This is for the town of Earl in Arkansas. It's about 2,000 people. This kid, Jalen Smith, he's 18. He won his election by about approaching 100 votes. It's a smaller town, 2,000 people, but as far as the votes, it was counted as 218 versus his opponent, which was 139. And it's something where he's very much pushing for change, and this kid is so well spoken. Yeah. It's one of the things where he's like, yeah, I started campaigning senior year of high school. I'm now technically a freshman in college, but now it's something where he's like, whatever criticism I get for, you know, you're too young to be doing what I do, I just take that as I gotta use this chance to prove people wrong. And one of the like bigger things as far as his goals and ambitions is just trying to improve the community there. He's focusing on transportation, he's focusing on public safety, and then most importantly, and what kind of the crux of the story was him talking about how there used to be a local grocery store, but it closed down years and years ago. Well, now it's something where a lot of the town's residents have to drive all the way. It's right on the edge of Tennessee, so people are driving out of state to like West Memphis to get their groceries and then come back and what have you. And it's just this big burden on the elderly in his community. So he's fighting to get a grocery store back into place. Yeah, and with such a small town, it's like, man, I think you've got a hurdle, but so far you're outliving expectations, and there's a lot of like public eye now on his town. So I'm very fascinated. Plus, he's like, no, this is setting historical precedences kind of thing. Is very, very cool, very inspirational. So kudos to Mr. Smith at 18 years old and a mayor.
I also love that too. It's like, you're too young to be doing this. It's like, really? Then why am I the right age according to the laws that I
why am I
weird how that works.
So following that to another very wholesome story about a youngin. There is a kid named Madeline who ended up writing a letter to addressed to LA County. It made its way to the Los Angeles Animal Care and Control Center. And she was asking very responsibly for permission for a license so that if she finds a unicorn, she can keep it in her backyard. They responded, absolutely. They gave her 5 stipulations that she needs to follow. The first of which being, you need to be in compliance of all animal caretaking regulations. However, you need to make sure this unicorn is given regular access to sunlight, moonbeams, and rainbows. The unicorn must be fed its favorite treats, one of them, watermelon, at least once each week. The unicorn's horn must be maintained in good health, requiring polishing with a soft cloth at least once a month. And then any sparkles or glitter used on the unicorn must be non-toxic and biodegradable to make sure it stays in good health. So in addition to these stipulations, they included a certificate saying she has the permanent unicorn license. And in addition to the certificate, they sent a plush unicorn with a little name tag saying permanent unicorn license in this beautiful purplish pink rose color. And so the ultimate great thing with this is you have a kid who's very responsibly asking hey, can I take care of this animal? And they're like, yes, absolutely. Keep up the good work. Congrats to you. They shouted out to her. It's on Twitter and everything, but you go, Madeline. You're awesome.
One step closer.
Right? One step closer to proper unicorn licensing across the nation. I also want to acknowledge that it's, for me, it resonates even more because for the last, 3 or 4 years, I just been slowly trying to make unicorns my mom's thing. Mm-hmm. So every time I get the chance, I'll give her something unicorn related. Yeah. Her house, the house ended up flooding because there was a water problem connecting to the fridge. And so I brought over a 10-foot inflatable unicorn floaty. And I'm like, here, I heard you had a water issue, so I want to make sure you're fine. So just stuff like that. Anyway, very fun, very cute. Going from that into animal related caretaking and, in this case, rescue. There was a lost dog named Luna who, unfortunately, took off at one point. It managed to get out of the yard. Presumably, it was to chase an animal or something. It ended up falling off of a cliff and landing on this little 2-foot ledge. Yeah, just stuck on the edge. And Luna had been missing for 7 days. Oh. Thankfully, it was something where there was a passerby across there's a lake that this passerby was just going about his business, heard the dog barking, yelping in the distance, and went to investigate. It's something where he, just to make sure that the dog knew there was someone there, was clinging together pots and pans. He ended up getting onto a boat to try to find it, and then when they finally pinned down generally where he was, he ended up calling ROAM, ROAM. It's a volunteer rescue animal organization so that they can try to get this dog out of there. They managed to do so, and it's something where Ron, the person that realized there was a dog, was especially touched by, because it was something where he ended up losing his pet not too terribly long ago, about a year in the past. So that was something where it's really cool that Luna's fine. Up in this is in the Victoria area for where this all takes place, and more importantly, he's like, this is kind of a reminder for myself and for others out there, don't give up, especially when it comes to missing pets. It's something that you never know what's going to happen. I mean, last week, if I remember right, we were talking about a horse.
It was gone for multiple years.
8 years this horse was gone. So it is something where you absolutely still have a chance to find them and reunite. Yeah, and they were talking about how Luna just was like exploding with happiness, full with the tail and whatnot. Very, very cute, very fun. And thankfully, there's a great happy story with that one. So keeping up the good work, Rome and Ron. Going from that into kind of bigger picture things. In the Amazon, this is a very weird one. There's apparently a continuing trend of the fish in the area. More specifically, I'm pulling it up so that I can say the names. The Pirarucu. There's also the Arapaima or Paichi names. The multiple names, same fish. These fish are massive. They can grow to like 10 feet long. They weigh 450 pounds.
Proper freaking river monsters.
Yeah, it's something where, I mean, there's a picture of this guy pulling it into the boat. And it is, I mean, up to 10 feet is not an exaggeration. This thing looks like it weighs 2 of the dude that's pulling it into the boat. These giant water creatures are actually repopulating and starting to thrive once again. Back in like the 60s, between, laxed fishing rules and regulations, bigger boats, bigger equipment, better stuff. Yeah, overfishing became this massive problem where it got to a point where you used to be able to reliably catch these guys. It would take, in one case's story, one of the locals said his dad, it would take him like 4 or 5 days of trying in order to catch one of these fish. Now, a different person was saying that it's like, they happen to have a pretty lucky day and they caught 8 of them in the same day.
Baby.
Like, big night and day difference. So what's going right? What's working well? One of the big things is they have all the fishermen kind of survey the area. What's weird with these fish is the Pirarucu, or its alternate names, are air breathers or air gulpers, whatever you want to phrase it. They come up and just take a big gulp of air and go back down. Like every 15 minutes or so. So what these fishermen do is they kind of survey it. They get a count for like the local rivers and lakes and whatnot, just to get an idea of how many are in the area. And then from there, they're allowed to fish up 30% of them. And it's only for like a certain week period where they're not going to be mating or anything like that. And then afterwards, they're allowed to repopulate once again. With that, we're getting a reliable, consistent way of making sure that they don't end up going extinct. You still have some numbers. I will say that in addition to this being something that maintains the numbers at nature reserves and the like, there is always the ever expansive question of like illegal fishing, people that are going after it. Outside of that, they do have kind of a tagging system to show which ones are caught legally, which ones aren't. So that is something where there's a little bit of regulatory stuff to make sure that these fish are staying preserved and well taken care of while still allowing the ultimate fishing of them. But my goodness, these giant creatures are now like
much more plentiful, not nearly as worrisome as far as whether they go extinct.
And it's kind of fascinating from like a biodiversity thing. Just one, how big they are, and two, the fact that they actually breathe air to an extent. I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole. Apparently, this is not like the only fish that breathes air. There are some other examples. Fly fishing, mud skippers. Yeah, there are some other fish, and whether it's a lung version or it breathes through the skin or through its gills or what have you, there is air supplemented fish. They do think that these kinds of fish are what led to amphibians. It was just very interesting to kind of go down this rabbit hole and go, God, I know nothing. The world is awesome. So yeah, 10-foot giant fish that breathe air in the Amazon. What do you know? So that was one thing that was really cool that's coming out of Brazil. And then another big picture thing, a little bit more locally here in New Mexico, here in the States. New Mexico
New Mexico.
they put it into law and then more recently into their constitution that they will have free childcare services.
Nice.
And to dive into like what this means and how it came to be, it was the first state to properly provide free childcare services back in May of just this year. It was the first to do it. It was for most circumstances. Now it's expanded that scope so that it's for everybody gets free childcare. And there's a lot of reasons as to why New Mexico has been fighting against poor child caring issues for quite some time. And this is part of that pushback against it. It's also something where economically, there's a lot of stats that go behind making this decision happen. The Childcare Aware for America, I believe, is the full title of the organization. It's something where they estimate if you're taking care of a child, you shouldn't spend more than 7% of your income if you're a low income household. Right now, the average is about $10,000 a year, give or take. And that's about 10%, assuming the average of about $10,000 or $100,000 a year. You're taking $10,000 just to spend on kids. So we're already at 10% nationally speaking. If you're a single parent, that drops even more drastically to about 35% of your income as a single household. Well, going further, New Mexico in particular has a income average of about $51,000 for the households. So basically, they're about spending a fourth, 2/5 to a fourth of their income just on childcare services. And because of that, in addition to that, however you want to phrase it, it's something where when this came up to voting, 70% of people in New Mexico voted for it rather than against it. And the way they're going to make it happen is New Mexico is like the second most revenue generating in the oil and gas industry. So they're going to use revenues from that to try to supplement this aspect of their child caring. Exactly. And then in addition to it, being provided statewide, it'll be also used for just improving the quality of what they do have already. So any childcare workers like teachers, or if it's just as simple as babysitting kind of stuff, they now have like minimum payment thresholds that are a little bit higher than what their state's mandated wage would be. So lots of things just trying to push that boundary in New Mexico. And I'm very curious to see if that's something that carries on to other states as well. I do know for here in Colorado, we were talking about the recent act that went through for food providing for public schools, just stuff like that, where we're giving kids and families by proxy the things that they need in order to grow up, maintain successfully as human beings. So very excited about that. Happy to see where it goes. And then going from that into the holidays, I think it transitions really well into the first one, which is International Health Coverage Day, also Universal Health Coverage Day. There's a lot of like days that are the same thing, but they're different titles. Anyway, Health Coverage Day, yay. So many places in the world have figured it out.
Healthcare is really neat.
Yeah, we'll see if that's something that will make its bounds eventually here in the States.
Hopefully before I'm old and gray.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think that we've been seeing so many cool improvements in healthcare, and with the things like robotics and AI just how disruptive it's been for art recently. I'm very excited to see if that's something that comes about to further help, what nurses we do have, because my good Lord, my mom's a nurse. She's stretched thin as it is. Anything we can do to help them go. Following that, it is Ding-a-Ling Day, which sounds really funny. And it sounds like
we can't say the P word.
It's actually not. No, it's ding-a-ling as in another word for your phone, your telly, what have you. It's
I've never heard anybody call it.
when I think of ding-a-ling, I think of like the Christmas music, like ring-a-ling, ding-a-ling, ding-a-ling.
Oh.
Apparently, that's what it's for.
Jordan is so
the idea.
here.
No, I have a dirty mind. We'll get to that. Hold on. Wait, there's a different day for this. So Ding-a-ling Day is based around the idea that you pick up a phone and you go and catch up with somebody that you haven't done in a while. I thought it was really appropriate given that I just got to hang out with 5 people that I haven't seen in a hot
why isn't
minute.
it ring-a-ling?
I don't know.
I
don't know.
Either way.
It's one
I
of
guess
those
they have a
things.
sense of humor.
It's kind of like saying someone's a new egg or a bad egg is very 1920s. That's where my brain goes. So
Ding-a-ling your mom.
Ding-a-ling Day. It's also Choral Day, as in choir. Likely for all your Christmas carolers going around and about. All your favorite holiday music musings. Carrying on with holiday things, it is Gingerbread House Day and also Gingerbread Decorating Day. 2 different days, same thing. Haha.
You ever do the Halloween gingerbread houses?
No, that does sound very fun. Like very pumpkin spooky.
I like gingerbread, but man, those kits are nasty.
They're tough.
They don't taste that good.
I think that's just gingerbread generally.
I feel like if you get a nice gingerbread, it's like something else. But yeah,
I think when I think of gingerbread, I don't think.
Because I love like ginger snaps and gingerbread.
I think for me, the word gingerbread makes me think it's going to be breadier, and because it's kind of a hard cookie, that throws me a little bit.
That's where it's like if you go to like a nice Christmas like craft fair and there's like the lady making gingerbread, it's like.
And it's like a loaf form kind of thing.
Well, it's like a biscuit, like in the UK more. You know what I mean? It's kind of
yeah.
somewhere in there.
Yeah, that's something that I think I would be much more down for. It kind of reminds me, aside from this podcast, we like to have very fun conversations. We had this back and forth about like, okay, is this a bakery thing or is this just a chef cooking thing? I feel like that gingerbread skirts that line between like, okay, are we baking? Are we cooking? Are we what have you? In some sense, it reminds me of that conversation. Aside from that, it is, and this one was an interesting one to learn about. It is Pa Togan Nangmiza Sangma, which is a day celebrating the life of Pa Togan and kind of the revolutionary spirit is what I'm gonna say. I equate him to being like a Braveheart of India. This guy
against imperialism.
Yeah, so the British Army came down and he was the last of many people to fight for his independence for his village. And since his passing, and still to this day, people celebrate him. It's actually something where there's multiple songs that are used in India that reference him directly or are about him.
Folk hero kind of status. Almost.
Yeah, exactly. So
non-fictional folk hero, I guess I should say.
Yeah, exactly. So that was something that was really cool to learn about. So Pa Togan Day. And then finally, on the subject of innocence and non-innocence, it is Festival of Unmentionable Thoughts Day. I usually, I don't equate this to like dirty thoughts. I equate it to things that I'll probably go to hell for. That's where my brain usually goes, where it's like, that sounds bad. Let's take like Scrooge and him saying like, decrease the surplus population. Everybody saw Thanos with the Marvel Cinematic Universe and everyone went, yeah, overpopulation's a bad problem. Like, that's where my brain goes. I do think what was interesting reading about the day, they took it as a, hey, people are imaginative. You're going to come up with whatever thoughts or feelings or what have you.
And as always, you get those intrusive thoughts. And it's time to like think critically. Yes, you might have these different ideas or thoughts or feelings or what have yous, but please don't. No. The full Palpatine. Please don't. Get some girls, bro. What are you talking about, bro?
So, with Festival of Unmentionable Thoughts, it's a day to think critically, and if there is a feeling, a thought, what have you, that you think needs to be put into action, think about the consequences, I will say. But this might be a day to elaborate on them or bring it up in good company to further develop those ideas. It's almost kind of like a day promoting free speech in a way, which I think there is absolutely the right time and place for.
Well, like getting to the root of that thought. Like, why is that there?
Yeah.
I know this is not really what I want, but why am I thinking that?
Yeah. Why do I feel like jumping off this bridge? Well, maybe I'm not happy.
Why do I want to be with my friend's girlfriend? Am I just jealous of their happiness? That's just an example. It's from the song Jesse's Girl.
I wish that I had. Also a bop. So, on the subject of, that little demon that you gotta keep down sometimes, Rec 4. I think that's a good way to put it. So
another legacy of this podcast. We're finally here.
We're at the finale. The Rec series comes to an end.
Nice little conclusory moment to wrap her all up.
Man, oh man. So, goodness, we started talking about the Rec movies months and months and months ago. We finally made it here.
One of our big first horror ones, I think we did.
Yeah.
I think this was the first proper horror movie we did.
Something like that.
Definitely an early one yet.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing else.
And boy, howdy, what a ride it has been. So with Rec 4 Apocalypse, it's the full title. Very edgy, very 2014, 2015. That's when it was released. There's a lot of good in this. I don't think it is flawless. I also think that it's a worthy sequel of the Rec name.
It's kind of a Fast and the Furious situation where it's the actual proper third movie. It's not like a weird spin-off diatribe kind of thing.
Yeah, Rec 3 went and did its own thing. Rec 4 is the sequel to Rec 2.
The proper threequel, if you will.
But with that said, it is, while I think it's a worthy sequel, I don't think it's a worthy finale for the franchise. That said, let's dive into the filmmaking before we get into any plot stuff. My goodness, the action is awesome. The cinematography and editing, I think
a little of the diegetic cameras, but it is mostly cinematically shot. But still, it comes back in some ways, which is very cool. Yeah,
it's a great return to form. It kind of brings it back to its roots in that it mentions and uses the camera in Rec 1, Rec 2 as a piece of plot and relevance.
Helps the characters figure out what's actually happening, and
we get to see the return of our hero, our queen, Angela Vidal. She's back, baby. We get to see the kind of continued expansion of the world building in a way. And we get the same kind of claustrophobia that we had in the first two Rec movies, because this is set on a ship, a fishing vessel.
Which is still nice because it is not just another building, because it's a fun place to shoot, but it's it's the fourth movie, so. Yeah,
and more importantly, it maintains the kind of claustrophobia dangers around the corner aspect that I think.
Well, and it's you can't even get outside. There was quarantine teams before that would kind of stop you, but even if you could get outside of this,
you'll drown.
Water.
Yeah, it is a death sentence. So here you are on the boat. What are you going to do? Zombies. So I think going into other things that are fantastic, the makeup, costuming, 10 out of 10. Angela's in the same outfit as the first two.
And then the in-camera effects are really good. The stuff that is actually physically done, the prosthetic things. These are very good.
There's a little bit of puppet / animatronic work. It looks great. Where it is CG, I will say 2014, 2015, we've come a long way. There's a lot of time that has passed since then. Even for that time, some of the CG looks a little bit off or dated. I think
it's primarily the monkeys that really are not great looking. I think the gunfire works really well.
Yes.
They have a lot of good attention to detail. Towards the end, there's a really cool sequence that has some really nice stuff done. But the CG is a little on the monkeys. It could have maybe used a little more camera spasming or less of a lighting shot there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things where let's go to Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park knew that it will try its best to make the best darndest, and
we're going to do a lot of this at night, or it's going to be very static.
Have it covered in rain as well.
Exactly,
like lots of things to help further sell.
That, but thankfully, it's very little of the actual screen time. So it's not going to be like an extended sequence of like...
Yeah. I'll also say, going off of the lighting, this movie's refreshingly not afraid to be dark tactfully. I think it's very tasteful when it is very dark. And
it does have some fun playing with like diegetic light sources that are around, or auxiliary ones that they have on themselves.
Yeah, and to carry it further, relating to some dark scenes in movies and shows lately, it feels like we've almost gotten too far into, we can make it dark. Let's make it as dark as possible for insert dark scenes. When back in the day it was, if it's dark, it's just filmed in blue. This movie, it's dark at times, but otherwise it has like either flashing lighting or dim lighting, so on and so forth. Like it does a very careful blend, especially because you've got dark underneath the ship, you've got dark at night outside during a thunderstorm. Like it's something where there wasn't a moment when the darkness made me go, God, I can't understand what's going on. It's
I will also say I did really like this. Has a very good like day-night cycle thing where it checks out nicely. Like some of it is a day, some of it is night, but it works along with the timeline of the movie, which is nice.
Yeah.
You don't have any day for night scenes or whatever.
Yeah. Another thing that I think works really well in terms of the acting, I think the actors killed it across the board.
Oh, yeah.
Manuela, who's playing Angela Vidal, kills it. You've got Guzman, who's one of the other like main characters. You have what I will call Spanish Tommy Lee Jones in a way. It's what he evokes to me. I don't think he's a one-on-one.
That is the cool one with it being like in his Spanish. It's so like palpable and hits you even.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he carries some authoritative something with him. It's
I
pretty
really
cool.
love the ship's crew, Nick, Goro, and the captain. They're really fun. And the engineer downstairs, which I can't remember if he actually had a name. I didn't actually go ahead and look, but he's the mechanic deep under the sea.
Yeah, I'll also say, we don't speak Spanish natively. It is something where this movie, I think, is the first of the Rec movies where the captions might not have been done as properly.
Well, I think
I looked for a few versions.
Means of watching it maybe had an effect on that. Like, I wonder if we had the Blu-ray, if it would be better.
Maybe. I don't know, because I checked a couple of different versions and I kept getting the same captions, and I'm like, okay, so maybe it's just the way that it was. Who knows on that front? But
distributor thing.
Possibly. I'll also say, as like a last point of praise, the music in this I really enjoy, because it's diegetic music, which is used really well for transitioning and establishing what insert character is that's listening to the music, whether it's on headphones or the like. But then it also had a really, really cool score towards the very end. I was like, wow, this is like properly heroic, inspirational. It just slowly climbed into this catharsis. That was really, really fun. That said, Rec 4, pretty good. Go and see it. If you want to avoid the spoiler part, well, here we are, slowly encroaching on it, one step at a time. Get out of here. Be gone.
Get out of here.
So, plot. We start with Rec 1/2. We're back in our favorite apartment building. We can tell it's the same place. We get some of the same shots, but for the most part, it's filmed in a more cinematographer, modern way, rather than here's shaky cam going through.
News crew.
It's not body cam either, so...
Pablo!
Oh, man, Pablo. So, we get to see Guzman, Lucas, and a number of these other soldiers kind of storming the castle, setting up charges to just blow the whole thing to Kingdom Come. They get attacked by zombies. A few of them have to go through the very strict protocol of, dude, you're bit.
Done.
Off you go. You're donezo. We hear Angela crying for help, and Guzman, to the detriment of the people behind who are like, we set the charges, our job's here, done, finished, we gotta go. He's like, no, there's somebody.
Firefighter on this.
Oh yeah. So he's storming the castle. He's going best intentions. I'm gonna go save Angela. We get to see them have like a face to face for just a few seconds. Cut. We're gonna be on a boat for the rest of the movie. So on this ship, Angela's like tied up. They're doing tests and making sure that she's not evil, dead, zombie mode, anything at risk of that. And she eventually tests fine. She's good. We don't have to worry about her. We learn about this ship. It's a big, like, proper commercial fishing vessel, but it's been kind of retrofitted into this like laboratory medical experiment of sorts happening below deck. There's all this extra equipment that's taking a lot of power. It's causing some brownouts here and there.
The medical equipment needs separate generators and such.
Yeah.
It is also a bit of an older ship.
Yeah. And we have Angela as well as the other rescuers from this mission, namely Guzman and Lucas. Guzman, the one that was face to face with her. Lucas, just one of the other people that was on that mission and setting charges. We also learn about another outside passenger, this old grandma who is very confused. She was at a wedding, referencing Rec 3. And she's under the assumption that this is some extra over-the-top modern wedding.
It makes jokes to cruise or whatever.
Yeah, which, funnily enough, I do kind of agree. I mean, one of the things we talked about is, geez, that wedding, like, that was some other venue. That was massive as far as the scale of the wedding. So she's not very far off from what our thoughts were about Rec 3. So going from that to kind of the rest of the crew, we've got our camera guy Nick, we have Goro, we've got our captain who is this is my last ship until retirement. He's a goner, you know it from that line just right out the gate. It's like, oh shit, you had one line you can't say, and it's the 2 days from retirement. Come on, guy. We start to learn that they are doing some tests and whatnot in the laboratory section.
Which is heavily secured, locked up with a number sequence to get through.
Yep, very far below deck. They've got cameras set up all over the ship. Yeah. And our radio operator, computer whiz guy, Nick, has found a way to kind of pop into
work his way in.
Yeah, so he's got like a general idea. He doesn't know what's behind the super secret door, but he knows that it's guarded.
He knows there's been cages taken down into the lab.
Yes. So with all of this information, it's something where the folks that are on board are kind of left to their day-to-day. They kind of catch up and debrief each other.
Like, not prisoners. It's weird. There's no security detail around. They're real jerks about it, but...
Yeah. They're
free to move about.
Yeah. They're like, look, you're on a boat. You're not going anywhere, but... So after Nick shows Guzman like the whole camera setup,
meets everybody.
Angela comes up. Nick's a super fan. He's like, "Oh my god, I've seen all of your late night programs about firefighters and whatnots. You're awesome. Please."
Jumped into the garbage can of some story or something.
Yeah, you're
a charming scene.
You're ready to hop right into action. It's something where the night comes. There's a little bit of black outage happening. And we get this scene of them going down to the lab and presumably testing whatever proposed cure on their captive, on their subject, their patient. Yes, the patient's gone. Oh no! Upstairs in the kitchen, we have our head chef. Our boy, they mentioned that he's Filipino, but I don't know if he has a name. I don't think he does.
I don't think he really
He's rocking out. He's got some proper music blasting. He's having a good time. He's just doing his thing. And a freaking zombie monkey comes out of an air duct and just gets at him. He manages to beat the monkey. He
stir fries him in his walk.
He gets bit in this whole endeavor. But he does capture him and just cooks him to death, essentially. He stops moving.
Yeah, and then proceeds to chop it up and cook it, which is probably through the effects of whatever he's under.
Yeah,
A little.
This is one of the things where I'm like, okay, plot wise, it needed something to make the plot happen. So I would have liked if it were a more supernatural aspect. This movie goes very science heavy, and
It's more like the Resident Evil level.
Yeah, and because Rec establishes like this is zombified demonic possession kind of thing, I kind of wish that they went into that like it's a plot of like he's getting taken over, so he's gonna cook up the monkey and try to actually feed it to people. What ends up happening is we get half zombified dude wearing headphones. The crew is just left hungry for like 10-15 minutes, and one of the dudes goes, all right, well, this freaking guy getting lazy again goes into the kitchen, and he's just like, oh, it's done. All right, yeah, and, like presumably takes it out so people can eat it. And when there's a literal monkey's paw in the soup or in the stew, or
It's supposed to be lamb.
yeah,
Sure, bringing in the lamb earlier.
yeah, when you've got monkey bits that have it that are still furry,
You know what, Jordan?
questionable.
You of all people, kind of ironic to hear that from.
Okay, I am a bad cook. I would expect
It's not that you're a bad cook. You'll just eat a lot of things.
I will.
Very low standards for what you put in your mouth.
Yeah. So
I mean, you have your own standards for. They're just very strange.
I would say I should know the difference between a lamb and a monkey, especially if it's a paw.
When you're hungry,
Anything goes. so
I'll eat that monkey.
so they eat zombified monkey food, and they come
Some.
in like
Eat it. Goro, the like ship's navigator dude, he eats it.
It's just
bunch
like,
of the security
ugh.
detail.
yeah
But our main crew, they were on like the second wave. Like they split up the eating.
yeah. Lucas manages to step in. He
Being an absolute golden boy, because the grandmother
grandma.
through this is like, and initially she was like the first meal, she's like, can I get some milk and cookies? And the
literally.
chef gives her some crap, but then goes and does it for him. So he's coming back and he's like, hey, it's a little rich for her. Like, got anything that's not lamb, pasta, baby?
The guy turns around and it's like, uh-oh. So Lucas finds out that, oh no, our chef is a monster. No one eat the food. Don't do it. It's a trap.
Stops him.
Yeah, so he manages to get the rest of our main crew. Following that, chaos ensues. Zombies are everywhere, slowly but surely. Our buddy Goro, the navigator, is like told to go sit down because he's like,
not feeling well. So
I got a stomach issue. He's like, well, you always have stomach problems after the fish. He's like, but there wasn't fish.
Yeah, like he talks about the worm, and it's like, well, it was lamb.
It was lamb. Oh
Goes to the
no.
bathroom.
Yeah. So as the ship slowly devolves, they go, all right, you know what? We've got this test cure, and wouldn't you know, Lucas manages to lock our chef zombie into the freezer. So they're like, well, we've got this test cure, and we've got a zombie in the freezer. So here, Guzman, here's a taser. Zap the boy so that I can get in with the cure, and we're gonna see if it works. They try, they inject the cure, and it like bubbles under his flesh. It looks really good because it's like prosthetic and
it's very kind of zergy with the pustules and stuff.
yeah.
I like the
unsettling in a great way. Oh, so it doesn't work. He's still very much a zombie.
Seems to make it almost worse, maybe.
Yeah. So they're like,
And
shoot.
just lock him back in the freezer again, thankfully.
Yeah, they get out of there, shut the door, and they're like, okay, well, that didn't work. We don't really have enough time to do another cure, and things are going to hell.
Well, and they realize the virus has mutated, probably in this case, so they need like the base sample from like the actual
they need
patient's
the source.
who's
And
gone.
yeah, and they're like, there's no way we're gonna find the origin of this virus to properly make a cure. Our Spanish Tommy Lee Jones doctor in
I gotta
charge,
commit seppuku for everybody.
he's like, for the good of the world, and he starts busting out a self-destruct timer.
Which is hilarious because that's just the controller for like a shop crane.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah, up, down.
I mean, it works. Like,
Emergency
remote's
stop.
remote, you wire it, whatever.
All right. So,
Those are
so this is about to go down. Now, in the background, our camera boy, our comp whiz, our techie Nick has been slowly putting together, rendering, what have you, all
frame
of the
by frame
for all of the footage of the first Rec movies camera.
Pablo's beautiful film.
Yes. So what happened?
Which I will say, that is like my main thing with this. Of like, most of the camera's not diegetic here, but I love how they still work that camera in. Like
the fact that there was a diegetic is part of the plot.
The camera still mattered, which I love.
Yeah.
But anyways,
so they go through the footage and they're like, oh my gosh, we very well might have our patient zero original subject because this giant worm parasite demon
from
thingy.
The original little girl who was possessed in the first movie.
Yep.
You see it like riding into Angela.
It's our little post-sequel sequence grossness straight out of the tentacle porn type shit.
Oh, dude.
Just
you ever seen that one episode of Mr. Meaty with the tapeworm?
It's
exactly, you didn't like that, yeah.
Oh no!
The reason horror. I remembered it is because of this movie. I'm like, no, I got it out of my mind.
It's just So our little tapeworm is in Angela. Oh no! We knew this from Rec 2. And throughout this movie, there's been some moments where she's been slightly more unhinged, or just not willing to cooperate.
Very strong in this movie at certain points, so that's kind of what I was wondering. Like, not that Angela can't take care of herself. 2 Rec movies in, a bit of a queen. But I was kind of wondering,
is she superpowered?
It seemed a little off apparently, so I was like, is that what they're pushing here? But
so they go to chop her up so that they can get the
it's a rough scene, man. Like
they pin her to the thing. They've got the scalpel. They lift her shirt and they're like ready to stab.
Morphine.
Guzman's like, hell nah, stops that, guns to people's heads type of deal.
No, he lets it happen.
Well,
it's guns to the head and then the guns go down, and he's like.
Well, and then they have like this standoff with Spanish Tommy Lee Jones, and Lucas has his gun as well, or whatever.
It's Captain. He's got his revolver.
Yeah, that's what it is. So it's about to go down, and then they do a test just to see if she's infected. And it comes back negative. And then they're like, okay, but you could be cured because the parasite wants to make sure your living host is not.
So the parasite can get around. It makes the host immune.
Yes.
So it doesn't present anything and get killed.
Exactly. So they're working under that assumption. Chaos continues to ensue because we have our buddy Goro who comes out of the bathroom, full zombie mode.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
And was able to escape with everybody.
In the chaos, our head doctor, Spanish Tommy Lee Jones, he and Angela are one-on-one with each other, and she's like, I'm gonna prove to you I am not like possessed or anything like that. His hand gets bitten,
she bites it.
Full on.
Yeah.
She sinks her teeth in. It's kind of gnarly. I like it. She's like, look, you better hope I'm not, because otherwise you're gonna be a zombie. And he's like, oh shit. He goes to get a test. Yeah, goes to the lab, gets a test, and negative. He's like, it's impossible. Like, maybe it's a false negative. Fair assumption. You also were pretty gung-ho as soon as like things are positive that we just execute immediately. It's one of those things where it's like, yes, out of abundance of caution, but also you're getting a little hypocritical in a way.
Kind of a bag of turds.
Yeah, he could present things a little nicer.
Just in general, kind of it.
There's good medicine and there's bad medicine. I'm sure Dr. Mike has an opinion. So, going from there to the next big reveal, we find out that this host will transfer itself, the parasite will transfer itself to a stronger host should one present itself. And Angela says something to the effect of, wait, there was like the minute of us being together, with you Guzman. And Guzman. So Guzman at this point is like, hey, look, the gig's up. I'm the baddie.
It was me.
It was me all along. And I'm strong. And I will say I'm I know Angela acted a little bit weird in Rec 2.
Yeah.
Like there was a little bit of sus behavior, and I don't remember how sus or not she was compared to in this one, but I do think either it's being less sus and smarter, or it's like a what's the word I want to use?
Do you think there is precedent for someone who's probably gone through that much emotional trauma in the last, like, however long it's been, that she's a little off at this point?
Well, this is like a trained soldier ready for war kind of thing. So I'm curious, this is a little bit more world building lore type of stuff. Like how much does the host affect how it acts kind of thing. Anyway, Guzman is our baddie. And that's not great because
and he's trying to get the parasite is now trying to transfer back into Angela.
Yes. So with lots of fighting chaos zombies everywhere, all that jazz, eventually, I say eventually because there's a lot of great action and horror moments and so on and so forth.
So many cool, very physical sequences.
Yes, and the cutting and the editing and delicious. So, eventually, with Guzman being bad, we get this moment where he gets Nick onto the floor, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, Nick gets taken out.
Yeah. Nick's floored, and you have this animatronic wormy boy coming out of Guzman's mouth trying to get back into Angela.
You get deep up in there. There's some process happening here.
We mentioned this is a fishing vessel. While their guns might be running out of ammo, good on them. Yes, excellent. They use a harpoon gun. They manage to get Guzman down. The worm just kind of slinks back into him like, oh no! Well, I guess I'm not going into Angela. And Nick and Angela rush to get off of this massive fishing vessel full of zombies. They managed to get to one of the lifeboats.
Nick was able to get a lifeboat off of our Tommy Lee Jones fella.
Oh yeah.
Who had a little something backup plan for himself. And Nick had a boat engine that he was using as a weapon, like a trolling motor.
A literal.
So he's like, well, good, like help us out, and he's just like, yoinks it.
He's like, you suck, get out of here. We get a scene of chopping up monkeys at an event.
Monkeys.
So,
that is probably the worst part of the CGI, I will say, is that scene. Like, it's very Rec 3 and hilarious, but like the actual visuals of it are a little like, but it's fun time. It is darker, thankfully. That helps a little bit. It's the head going back and forth. You can really tell. Like,
so, after this great escape, we get onto this life raft. Nick's there. He's ready. He's going. Angela, like, leaps into the water kind of thing. The ship is blowing up in the background. She manages to get onto the raft.
It's a bit of a tense scene, though, because, like, at first it's just Nick, and he's like, hey,
he's looking into the dark water.
It's panning around. There's, like, a palpable break.
It's nighttime.
Yeah.
The music starts to swell, full heroic triumph mode as she comes up for air and makes her way over to the boat. And we get 2 credit scenes of sorts. We get like a proper, like right before the credits of, all right, the ship exploded, fade to black, and then you get like bass tremor, and it's the little wormy parasite boy just floating in the water, just bass tremor. And then there's like what looks like a barracuda.
I'm gonna guess. Long, slender fish.
Yeah.
Big.
Just kind of swims by, sees our big wormy thingy, and as it swims to it, the wormy boy dives into its mouth very purposefully.
As I want.
Sequel bait with literal bait, like fish bait. This is a worm. And we also get a mid-credit scene of Nick and Angela just like sitting awkwardly next to each other in a cab.
I think it's more of like one of those like it's 3 a.m. at Denny's and we're just like,
we're so done. Look, we're home. It's over now. We can go to bed now.
Everyone's too emotionally spent to say anything.
Yeah. So that's kind of the plot of Rec 4. Ultimately, big picture, like I do think this is a worthy sequel, worthy of the Rec name. I don't think this is a great finale, but
which I don't think it was intended to be, in my opinion. I definitely feel like there was more setup at the end of this.
Yeah, I'm split if this was meant to be a finale or not. It has some things about it that are very
finale,
nice.
The parasite would have been dead. That's my thought process.
Yeah, it's I don't know. And I will also say that the naming, again, Rec 3, we were shitting on the name Genesis.
Subtitle number 3, Apocalypse.
Rec 4, Apocalypse. It's set in a worldwide apocalypse of a boat isolated from anybody else. So it's safe.
You barely even see a city other than the mid-credit scene.
Like, wait a minute here. And it's really funny because some of the like covers for Rec 4, when I was like putting together thumbnails, images, what have you, like show Angela like standing with buildings in the background. I'm like, now wait just a second here.
I think that's always the classic, like the people who make the film and distribute it are a different crew, and maybe some of the distributors didn't really watch the movie weirdly enough, so or they're I don't know.
Most of it is the boat, but not all of it. That made me laugh. I will say, as far as the title goes, it has a porthole instead of the recording symbol,
which was a
circle, which that's clever. I like that.
But it's like, man, if you're doing a series like this, just call it Rec 4.
Yeah, and with a name like Apocalypse, it carries a similar weight to like Armageddon, end of the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is not an end of the world story. This is here's the potential for it to become an end of the world. It's kind of like if there were a Rec 5 and that becomes full zombie outbreak worldwide, that's Rec 5 Apocalypse. Rec 4, it's like,
this is why anytime you hear Apocalypse, Armageddon, Judgment Day, it's been so beaten to death at this point. It's like, you're really just like grabbing out of a hat here, aren't you?
Yeah. So aside from less than deserving naming, I do think that this is ultimately a good return to form. It's funny that it kind of shits on Rec 3 just a little bit, because I do think it's enjoyable, but
it takes some moments. Like, the action gets a little, like with the bow engine. To me, that's very Rec 3, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah, I think it takes some of the good as well as some of the bad of Rec 3 in some senses. I also think
I like Rec 3. Jordan doesn't like fun.
I like Rec 3, but it's my least favorite of this series.
It's just no fun.
Here's probably my biggest problem with Rec 4. I think the biggest problem with Rec 4 is it loses the most unique aspect of its zombies, and that is the zombies of Rec 4 are scientifically explained almost entirely, rather than having this, like, it's demons that, like, man meddled where man should not meddle, vaguely supernatural connectedness. And aside from we have an Among Us imposter story where it's like, oh yes, it's possession. The possession is done by Worm. Like, it's very in our pre-talk about, the podcast and what we were thinking of today, we compared it a little bit to like the midichlorians in Star Wars over sciencing an inherently mystical thing. I think that has an apt comparison, but
and this is the one thing where I actually don't like Rec 3, because I kind of like that in Rec 1 and 2, it's really played with. And I think in Rec 4, they kind of compound that it's more of like people were ascribing this as demonic possession because that's just what a lot of people do. And through that, and then you have the scientists coming in and it's like, no, it's this parasite actually. And it's kind of a cultural thing leading to a bigger outbreak cause of our wider thing. Rec 3 does throw a wrench in that with its prayer chant thing, but that is actually kind of one of the parts I didn't like so much about that personally.
Yeah, the reason that I like the supernatural element is that it separates it from other zombie franchises, because there's so many different versions of zombies, but pretty much all of them at the end of the day come down to all right, virus or bioterrorism or like an offshoot of an existing disease. I mean, you've got super rabies for 28 Days Later. Yeah. You've got something happened at the CDC for Walking Dead. It's just one of those things where I think they're
show you more zombie movies.
Yeah,
I
well,
think.
The mainstream stuff.
Yeah.
It's like
Well,
you went to the mainstream.
White Zombie was a really popular movie in the 20s.
Anyway, I think that the Rec series, where it benefits from existing, is it has the potential to go a different route with its zombies. My brain goes to the Warm Bodies movie, where the zombies, yes, they're zombies, but there's this extra factor that makes that movie unique and separates it from the lot. I think Rec 4 had that, or Rec as a whole had that, and Rec 4 doesn't embrace it. And I think that's, for me, world building, plot, lore, what have you, whatever you want to call it. I think narratively, it was one of its potential strengths, and it just didn't meet that potential.
I think, this is me.
Sure.
I think zombies are always zombies.
Yeah.
I by no means am I ever going to be off on I like differences in zombies totally.
Yeah.
But they're usually the driving force to get the characters to go and do something and not sit in a room.
Yeah.
I like the one thing with Rec 4 is these characters and their connections of the thing of Lucas. Lucas took a blood sample that he wasn't really supposed to in his job, and that was a real thing that pissed Guzman off. So he has this thing where he's like, no, I gotta go back and get this old lady when she splits off inevitably. Yeah. And I like that moment. I enjoy the inner character connections of that crew and them working, and Nick going from being this kind of creepy guy to becoming this stand-up, no, let's do this. I got the stuff. I got this. We're going to give this a try.
Yeah.
And that to me is the real positive aspects of this, as well as just, I really love these action sequences. I was a real big fan of a zombie movie. But it's always one of those things we all take away our own little bits.
Yeah. Kind of carrying on from that, because I do think that from a thematic standpoint, it's something where you could say that Lucas was, because he was promised, whatever monetary compensation kind of thing, to go do what he wasn't supposed to do, draw a blood sample or take a blood sample, however he got it.
That's what they used to infect the monkeys.
Yeah, it's something where you could make a bigger point of from a thematic standpoint, humanity's inner demon is the problem, or inner evil, or greed, or whatever. You could do that and apply it to the zombies as a whole, where these zombies are a reflection of us meddling in things that we cannot do, is kind of my thinking for that second one, where we pushed a boundary where we're not allowed to go. But then in this one, it could be more of a reflection of, no, bro, humanity's got some evil in it, and you could potentially say that that's a wider spread thing, make it a society, be bad at times, don't give into it. I think you could have some kind of thematic messaging, and that could tie in really well with Lucas's bit with the grandma.
But it's really easy to say this in hindsight.
Yes.
Is my thing.
Yes. So, anyway, I do think worthy sequel, unfortunate finale.
I think 2 thumbs up.
But still fantastic.
Fucking amazing.
Ultimately, in terms of, we've reached the end of what Rec is, and it doesn't sound like there's any plans for the future. It's been
8 years.
Yeah. It's been nearly a decade, approaching that. Ultimately, what do we think of this? I mean, if we're ranking this, we're not putting a star on the individual movie, but just for the franchise as a whole, I think Rec 1, it's so
far and away
it launches a franchise because it deserved to launch a franchise. It was so good. After that, I think for me, this fourth one would be my favorite as far as how it executes, and I think it's the most consistently entertaining. While I don't think world building plot wise it contributes quite as much, I do still think it is extremely fun to go through. Rec 2, I think, contributes to the bigger world aspect, but it's kind of you could watch Rec 2, or let's just watch Rec 1 again. And then Rec 3, very silly, fun, zany, weird, exists.
I think it's kind of your palate cleanser if you're marathoning them.
Yeah. Yeah, if you go chronologically, Rec 1, Rec 2, Rec 3 fits well.
Interestingly works out really quite nicely.
Yeah, for going
I think it does well enough, at least it's staying interconnected with everything.
Yeah.
Even with the tonal shift.
Yeah. So, ultimately, the Rec series as a whole, Have you enjoyed this ride?
Oh yeah, it's been something else, and I mean, like it's been a I'll like to think of this as a kind of a pillar. This was like a pillar thing for this show for a while, so
yeah,
it's almost bittersweet.
You were in Canada when we talked about the first and the second one.
Like this is kind of the end of a path, but it was just kind of like, oh wow, we're here.
So following that, we'll probably have some other franchise that will go one piece at a time through. Whether it's one I've not seen, you've not seen, we'll figure that out. But ultimately, we're done with Rec. Yeah. Connor, where can we check you out at?
As always, this is the primary place to see the big 5-string C, but
Kerchow.
At 5-string Connor on YouTube as well if you want to see the random repository of videos. I'll probably start putting more climbing stuff up there.
Hey.
I just gotta get a thing coming in for like a tripod for my dude.
Absolutely. And then if you want to see more of me here, Narratives and Nonsense, we post on Mondays, or sometimes I stream, usually Wednesdays. Buddy John and I play Kingdom Hearts. We're on a break right now because that boy is midway through both teaching and getting his
John
PhD.
Hated me so much. I moved here and he immediately moved away.
Not even that. He heard that he was moving in, and he's like, "I'm going to be out before Connor makes it."
Romantic advances in game.
The man
leaves me as soon as I come here.
Goes out of state. So at some point, John and I will be resuming Kingdom Hearts,
but not me. John doesn't like me.
Following that,
check it out. It's a fun time.
Oh my gosh, that's so much fun! I can't wait for where the next game, Birth by Sleep, is going to happen, and. Oh boy, every sequel.
You play other Kingdom Hearts games that aren't Kingdom Hearts 2?
Yes. This is why it's such a fun ride. He has to go through the entirety of the story that is the bullshit of Kingdom Hearts, and I will get him through it. Oh my god. We're getting in we're going to start getting into why does this character look like that character? Oh, don't worry about that. That's explained in a mobile game. That's where we're headed. I'm so excited. Oh my lord. Anyway, everyone, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Take care. Woo! 100 subs, Rick and Morty, 100 seasons.